to infinity and beyond!
This is me. This is how I win.
Were you rushing or were you dragging? Answer!
You're a wizard, Harry.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you.
No. I am your father.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the film room. Zach Goins here with Johnny Sobchak for a fantastic little episode. If I do say so myself, if I don't say so, if I do say so, I am saying so. It's going to be great. We're talking House of the Dragon, episode 7, breaking down the latest in Westeros. A little Don't Worry, Darling, and a little Hocus Pocus 2 on top of a busy week of news, a lot of Marvel stuff happening, and our usual catch up of everything that we've been watching TV and on the big screen. So it's going to be a good one. Johnny, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing well. I am doing well. I'm excited to get into our conversation today. As you mentioned, lots and lots to cover. So I'm not going to hold it up. Let's get this ball rolling.
Let's do it. You know, I laid out the episode. We're doing news. We're doing House of the Dragon. Don't Worry, Darling. Hocus Pocus. But first, as always, got to plug the good stuff. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe to the newsletter, The Rewind. Get everything sent to your inbox. We had a big giveaway last week with some Warner Brothers horror spooky season movies. So congrats to our winner there. Lots of stuff coming. Lots of giveaways on the horizon. So be sure that you're just checking in with us on every channel, every platform so that you don't miss anything. But other than that, now that the official stuff is out of the way, what's been going on, Johnny? It's been a couple weeks since our last episode. Life is getting in the way, but here we are. What's been on the screen for you? What have you been watching?
Yeah, it's been a fun couple of weeks. Of course, you know, don't worry, darling, and some other things, Hocus Pocus mixed in here. But I checked out the Moon Age Daydream documentary about David Bowie, which was very cool. I got the IMAX experience, and it was very immersive, very loud, almost like a real life concert, and some of the most like visually stunning images of the entire year. So I like that a lot. I'm not a huge David Bowie fan, but I thought it was very insightful and kind of reflective in a lot of ways about like just art in general and kind of the artistic like pursuit and that sort of thing. So I really liked that. And then I also have revisited some films and also watched some newer stuff. So I revisited Avatar, also in IMAX 3D. I've seen it twice in IMAX.
Same here. Exactly, that was on my list.
And we both liked it. I think just as much, if not more, than we did the first time around or whenever we watched it last.
Definitely. I mean, this was one, not to hop into your what's going on section, but since I saw it too, we gotta talk about it here for a second. But you know, I think I said on this podcast as we were leading up to, we obviously knew that this re-release was happening, but I don't think I had seen Avatar since, you know, that original theatrical run in 2009. So it's been forever. And like, sure, I've seen bits and pieces probably on like TNT or something, you know, just like when it's on TV, but never sat down and watched it all the way through. And to do that in IMAX, I was not thrilled about 3D. I kept trying to find it in just like regular IMAX just because I'm like, I wish we could leave 3D in 2009, but I just have a really big head and those glasses were very tight. So that was my biggest issue. But no, it was fantastic. Like I was not like a hater per se, but I was just kind of like one of those people that was like, yeah, Avatar was great when I saw it, but like I don't really think about it very much. So I hadn't really like considered it much since I last saw it. And now obviously getting ready for this new one, was super excited, had this on the radar for a while for the re-release, and it more than lived up to the hype. It looked beautiful. This is the like 4K restoration basically. and to see it on the big screen in that environment. Like my theater was packed on the
Wow.
Friday that it was like a Friday evening showing when it first re-released.
Yeah.
And this was me. We'll get into it in a bit, but Don't Worry, Darling had previously been my number one most anticipated movie of the year, and here I am on their first day in theaters seeing a movie from 13 years ago rather than that. But that's another story.
Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, to also what you were saying there, as far as the 3D is concerned, it's interesting because I genuinely can't remember the last time I saw a 3D movie, like a big theatrical movie in theaters. And I of course remember seeing it in 3D when it first came out. And so I wouldn't say I was skeptical, but it's like, okay, we haven't really seen like this taken advantage of like in a good way since Avatar came out. I think a lot of movies have tried to do it and failed, because they don't really put in the time and planning and all those sorts of things. They just do it like a conversion. Um, and so for me, I actually thought that the 3D made it one of the, if not the most like immersive theatrical kind of experience, if not, one of the most theatrical, immersive theatrical experiences, if not the most, that I've kind of seen. And the 3D definitely adds to it. I mean, it looks amazing regardless, and I can't wait to get the 4K Blu-ray when it comes out, no doubt in the next few months. But I thought that the 3D was actually really well done and like didn't distract me at all and didn't give me a headache. I didn't think that and especially when it's running towards 3 hours. I mean, you would think maybe your eyes would strain or they would bother your head, maybe, or your ears, but thankfully not an issue for me at least. And I just really, really had a good time with it. I'd rewatched this, not different from you in that way. I had watched this like fairly recently on Disney Plus before they removed it in preparation for the re-release. And I was blown away by how much I liked it and like still liked it and really thought that it was actually quite good. And just rewatching it in this, scenario, just it kind of enhanced the experience and made me even more enthusiastic. So I'm very much looking forward to part two, The Way of Water. What did you think of the? Oh, you didn't see it. That's
I missed it. I was about to say devastating. I was like watching this movie. It ended, stuck
Yeah.
around for like a little bit of like, just like the first couple seconds of the credits. And then I was like, well, this isn't a Marvel movie. There's no post credits. And then I like got up and pieced out. And then literally like you guys were watching it either at the same time or had just gotten out. And I like popped in the group message when I got in my car and I was considering running back into the theater to try and catch it. But no, you got a first look at some footage from Way of Water. What was that like?
Very, 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 very cool. You didn't miss too much. It is a very short scene and it's completely out of context. So I'm sure in the next month or so when we get a new trailer, you'll still get a very impressive look at the movie. But it was cool to see something completely out of context and like just focusing on one character in a certain environment. And it was, I mean, it's crazy too, because we just watched the remastered 2009 movie. And I can see why James Cameron was worried or is worried that he said he thinks that the new movies are going to make the original look amateur by comparison, because it's unbelievable how realistic it looks. Like, I don't know how these people do it. Like, they are wizards, and the VFX team at Weta Digital and all that is working on these movies is incredible. And I'm looking forward to seeing more. And I don't know. We haven't gotten any new trailers since the teaser back in, I think it was like May or April. So hopefully before Black Panther comes out, I suspect Disney will treat us to something. But it was very impressive. And the 3D, the underwater stuff, it was all the best I've ever seen. I mean, it made Aquaman look like a video game. Like that's the comparison I would kind of make. And I really like Aquaman, and I really think the effects are great in that movie, but it's like night and day. So really excited to see what more people think of that. And I'm just looking forward to that movie in general. Last couple of things I'll touch on as far as my recent watches. I finally got on the Hocus Pocus train.
Right in time for spooky season.
Exactly. Have you seen the original before you watched it recently?
Yes. I'll get into more details about my relationship with the original when we get to like that little review section. But yes, I had seen the original.
Gotcha. So that was my first experience. I had seen bits and pieces, I think, over the years, but first time beginning to end, I appreciated it. I liked it. Was definitely of its time. In a lot of ways, it's campy, it's fun. Sarah Jessica Parker is doing her thing. And
the best part.
And Bette Midler is also very funny, and really just the whole trio is you can see why they have kind of it's almost like a cult classic in some ways. So I liked it. And then yeah, I also caught Bros opening weekend, went and saw that. Really funny, probably the funniest movie I've seen all year. I like that one a lot. And we definitely give it a recommendation. And then I also saw Athena on Netflix, the new French language film that premiered at Venice Film Festival last month, and was not as big a fan of that one, unfortunately. So wouldn't give the recommendation there, but go ahead and watch the first like 10 minutes or so. That's a very impressive, like fun sequence. But other than that, I've been hanging low, been hanging with House of the Dragon. And I'm sure we'll be getting it more into that later on.
Oh yeah. Nice. One thing you have not seen, I have not seen it yet either. Smile. That's definitely one that's on my radar,
Yes.
just because of how absurd the feedback is about it. Our own horror connoisseur and Jake was like, this thing was very fucked up. So I'm like equally excited and scared to see that whenever I do have time. But I have a friend who was like, he obviously knows that I'm like a movie guy that sees all these things, and he's like, when you go see Smile, let me know, I'll come with you.
Right.
He was curious, but he didn't want to go on his own, so I'll have a partner there.
Hell yeah.
But for me, the TV rundown first. You were talking about the David Bowie documentary. Well, I also had a visceral musical concert experience when I finished season 3 of High School Musical, the musical, the series. Finally finished that on Disney Plus. You know, I liked season 1. I liked season 2. This one was like lesser, I guess. Not gonna get too far into this, but I will say season 4. This is let me tell you this, Johnny. Were you a High School Musical kid? Disney Channel original movies, were you tuned in?
I missed the High School Musical craze, unfortunately, but
Wow, devastating.
I get it. I get it.
Well, this 4th season here, the premise is like nuts. Okay, so let me set the groundwork. First season of this show, it's like, okay, these are the kids who go to the real life school where the High School Musical movie was filmed, and like they're doing for their school musical High School Musical. Then season 2, same kids, their school musical this year is Beauty and the Beast. This season 3, they're at summer camp and they're performing Frozen at this camp. Now
Oh
season
gosh.
4, the metaverse, we're here. Just absolutely insane. So the premise here is that they are bringing the cast of original High School Musical, like Zac Efron, Vanessa Hudgens, all them, back to film High School Musical 4, like within the world of the show. They are making High School Musical 4. So that means they're all coming back to the real life school where these kids from the show go to school.
Yeah.
And these kids are going to be extras in the movie. So it's just like, okay, we're going to do High School Musical 4, and we're going to do the 4th season of the show, and we're combining the OG cast with these new kids. And I'm like, this is just going to get absurdly out of hand. So that's enough High School Musical talk. I just felt like I needed to get that off my chest because that's just like insane. But also on Disney Plus, started Andor. Have you been watching? I know you're not the Star Wars guy, but I didn't know if this was something that had piqued your interest at all.
It has my interest, but I have not started watching it yet. Well, I take that back briefly. I watched the first episode. It was kind of late at night. I was a little tuned out. I liked it. Definitely got my attention like in the first 10 or 15 minutes. I thought it was a great opening. But I have not continued. I've not seen any of the other episodes yet. But I'm curious. I mean, I hear nothing but good things, and I did like what I saw. So I feel like, but it didn't necessarily. I know it's a longer season. It's kind of structured differently. It didn't really hook me like super well as far as the story goes. But I wouldn't, say I wouldn't watch it necessarily.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And especially for someone who is not like all in on the Star Wars world. But I will say, this is really good so far. I'm very impressed. I've seen 4 episodes. 5th one will be out by the time you're listening to this podcast, but I'm liking it. The stuff that people have said, the showrunners were like, hey, you don't need to have any further Star Wars any past Star Wars experience to see this. You can just hop in with this show. It's a prequel to Rogue One. And so far it's been very self-sufficient, very isolated from everything else. You've obviously got Cassian Andor and the Empire, but nothing that is like strictly tied to other things. And it's very much just like this crime underworld thriller kind of thing that's going on, that just happens to be set in the Star Wars galaxy. And we've seen a lot of cool new planets, new species, new people, just really expanding on everything that Star Wars can be, which is what we've heard a lot about fans wanting, is to like further break away from the Skywalkers. This is still obviously connected somewhat, but like it's showing us things, places, people that we have not seen before, and just expanding on what people want more of in the Star Wars universe rather than telling the same old stories. So like my brother, for example, like casual Star Wars fan, I don't think he's seen like the new movies necessarily, maybe Force Awakens, but he's not watching the shows, he's not doing anything, but he's decided to watch Andor, just because it's like, okay, I like a crime thriller, I like the political intrigue of like this kind of stuff that I can maybe get into it. So TBD on what his actual thoughts are, but at least that it's enough to pique his interest and get him to check it out. But very, very impressed with that so far. Continuing on the TV front, finished season 1 of Abbott Elementary after the Emmys, you know, after my queen Hannah Waddingham lost the Best Supporting Actress in a Comedy Award to someone from Abbott Elementary. I had to give it the chance, you know, and I watched this show. It was good. I enjoyed it, but doesn't hold a flame to Ted Lasso, to Barry, to, you know, some of these other prestige comedies. So luckily Lasso still won the overall comedy series. I know you were pulling for Barry, but now I'm ready to I'll definitely keep watching it because season 2 is airing now of Abbott, but was not like blown away based on all the hype that I'd seen, but I still definitely enjoyed it. Switching over to the movie front, you know, like you, old stuff, new stuff, first watches. Saw Pearl to kick off spooky season. Obviously continuing off of X there. I enjoyed that, but not nearly as much as X. We already talked about the Avatar re-release. Hocus Pocus did a little doubleheader last Sunday with Hocus Pocus straight into Hocus Pocus 2. Don't Worry, Darling, which we're going to talk extensively about. Hellraiser, which hits Hulu this Friday. Have seen that, and it's good. It's good. I can't say too much about it due to work purposes, but I liked it better than I anticipated it. And then Looper. I watched Looper for the first time. Had the 4K that was released on 4K pretty recently. Finally checked it out. I know you love Rian Johnson, but I thought it was very cool, very, very fun twist on time. And this is when I checked your letterbox. I think you gave it 4 stars. So I was shocked to see that you held a Rian Johnson feature film in such high esteem.
Yeah, I mean that's his best movie that I've seen. So, I mean, the bar is low, but I thought last time I saw it anyway, I thought it was pretty good, and that's been a while. But yeah, it's an interesting concept. I like that one.
Yeah, it was cool. It was like one of these things where like the last, like, as things were starting to unfold, maybe like 5 seconds before, 10 seconds before, I was able to like realize what was about to happen. And it was like all of the pieces were coming together. So that was a cool experience. But let's put our Hocus Pocus 2 and Don't Worry Darling thoughts on pause, hop into some news here before we get into our movie and TV discussions. So we'll kick things off, as it always seems to be on these podcasts, with a heavy dose of Marvel news, breaking down the latest in the MCU. First up, the second trailer for Black Panther 2 released earlier this week. What are the thoughts here? You know, that first trailer, I guess, it was like a teaser, kind of a trailer. I don't know what you would necessarily call it, but was extremely well received, high praise, from showing, you know, this emotional trailer that's showing you what this post Chadwick Boseman world is going to look like. This is more of the meat and potatoes. Let's show you the plot. Let's show you the characters and everything, rather than just the tone, the mood of it all. We get a look at Shuri we get a look at the new Black Panther at the very end. Supposedly Shuri, we'll see. Lego may have some things to say about that, as I learned in Target. But no confirmation this way or that way in the trailer. We also saw Riri Williams as Ironheart, you know, the new I guess, version of Iron Man, the person who's picking up that mantle. Just a
Mhm.
little tease there. We saw Namor flying around. Saw a lot of cool stuff here. What were your thoughts on the trailer as a whole?
Yeah, I thought this was good. It obviously did not reach the mega heights of the first trailer, the teaser, out of D23, but it was still very good. I mean, the movie looks great. There's no denying that. The effects look much, much better than what we've seen from recent MCU movies, I would say. And there seems to be actual like thought and effort put into like the cinematography and the costumes and like the amazing sets and everything. I love the focus on Namor. I'm actually getting really excited. I'm a big Aquaman fan. Um, as people probably know, as a DC fan, that's one of my favorites. I am looking forward to another aquatic hero. I just think that like as a king, I think king, I think monarch characters are always really interesting just because of all the power that comes into that role and you know the kind of duality of you know good and bad and what makes a good ruler and that sort of thing. So I think that's cool to have Namor kind of take over in that regard, while Wakanda in this story is going to be very much open as far as being vulnerable. And so I'm curious to see what that looks like story wise. Visually, it looks amazing. What we've seen from Namor's kingdom looks amazing. Costumes, the fighting, the action sequences, him flying around looks like it's really well done as well. So I am very much on board. The one thing I'm curious about is I'm wondering, like, I feel like they were really trying to stick to, oh, who's going to be Black Panther? Who's going to be the new Black Panther? And now it's just like, oh, it's pretty much like his sister. Like that's just kind of like what they're kind of putting out there. It seems like so. I guess they abandoned like the like mystery aspect of it, which I think is fine or whatever. But interesting kind of pivot there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I am still a little, I don't want to say skeptical because I think Ryan Coogler is a great director and I'm sure the movie's going to be good at least. But I'm just wondering like how high can it go? Like how good can it be? Can it be better than the original? You know, is it going to be too much? It's a long movie. It's the second longest MCU movie ever. It's like 2 hours 45 minutes or something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's some things I'm a little curious about and a little maybe skeptical of, but overall, I still think it's looking great. I haven't got my tickets yet. Got to figure out when I'm going to see it. Definitely opening weekend. Of course, it's going to obliterate the box office without question. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully it delivers. You know, because there's a lot of hype and expectation surrounding this.
Yeah, I'm with you on the I guess just like the overall, like this trailer, the first one was so powerful and emotional and teasing it, and it, like I said, it really was just like a mood, a tone, you know, just like
Right.
this like powerful, somber but exciting moment. And then this was like more of the, you know, the Marvel fight, the this, that, the other, like all of the kind of like essentials that we've come to know here. Like it still looks good. I'm still excited for it. But it kind of, like you said, was like a little bit of a step down just from like how epic that first one was. So hopefully they can kind of carry over that attitude from just that first teaser into the actual movie. Hopefully that was not just like the cream of the crop in a teaser.
Mm.
But I saw people reacting about like the Black Panther clip at the end and being like, you couldn't have saved this for the movie. Like, why are we doing this a
Yeah.
month out? Like you've made it this far, years of speculation and
Yeah,
whatnot. And now
exactly.
you're a month out and you just release this. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
I
I
agree.
as I alluded to, I texted or I sent in our group message. I was in the toy section at Target the other day, and they have Black Panther Legos already on the shelf. Um, and there you go. It had the minifigures lined up, all of the characters. I could see exactly what they all looked like and who they were and everything. So no surprises for me coming up, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I feel like that's how it
yeah,
always goes with Marvel, is that like the
it does,
Marvel and
right?
Star
Yeah.
Wars, the toys are what give it away. That's like I remember the Iron Man Infinity Gauntlet was first unveiled because of the like replica toy.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, it comes with the territory. Most people, vast majority of people that are not plugged in like we are, don't care or don't know. So ultimately, Disney probably is just thinking about that factor. But you know, it is what it is. I'm still doesn't really affect my. We knew. I mean, we knew. We're kind of able to kind of parse that out. But I just think it was kind of a little weird as a marketing choice. But either way, I'm still looking forward to it. Have you gotten tickets yet?
I have not. No, this is.
So you don't like Black Panther?
Well, I'm joining you in the club, it sounds like. No, it's like at this point, like with my work, like I end up working until like 6:30, 7-ish. And so I'm like, am I able to commit to a Thursday night showing or even like a Friday evening? Like, do I have to wait until Saturday? That's not a Black Panther thing. That's just like movies in general now. It's hard for me
that's true.
to get to those. So
Yeah,
I can't make
same.
those commitments this far out, but we'll see what happens. I'll definitely be there at some point during the opening weekend to check it out. But moving along in the Marvel news, this one was a bit of a shocker. I don't know if you had any inkling that this might be on the horizon or not, but Deadpool 3 we knew was in the works. People begging, questioning, wondering when we were finally going to get this announcement that Ryan Reynolds was officially coming back. We knew he was coming back. We knew that it was happening, but just no when, no what,
This
no
was
where.
nuts, dude.
And lo and behold, not only is Ryan Reynolds here for Deadpool 3, but so is Hugh Jackman coming back as Logan / Wolverine once again. September 6th, 2024. This is hitting theaters. We've got a ways to go, but what a like jaw-dropping reveal. And I mean, people exaggerate Marvel reveals and freaking out about them and stuff, but like this was genuinely shocking because of how perfect Logan was as the send-off for this character, and to come back from something like that to now being in Deadpool 3, which I'm sure is going to be fun and silly, but like it's fun and silly versus that epic send-off. So
yeah,
I know you're a huge Logan fan. What's the reaction here?
Yeah, it's kind of mixed feelings. I feel like it's a very cool idea. Like, oh my gosh, Deadpool and Wolverine, like that could be really fun and entertaining. And I totally am here for that. At the same time, yeah, I do love Logan. I think it's one of the best comic book movies of all time, certainly in like the top 5 or so, I would say. And it stands on its own, and it's its own kind of story and has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You don't need to see anything else really to understand it. So, but I think you can still have that, and you can still have this. Like this is going to be really, it seems like its own thing. And if it is connected, the X-Men movies, for better or worse, have always been a cluster when it comes to continuity and that sort of thing. So it doesn't really bother me in that sense. And I think James Mangold also spoke to that online with his tweets. He said, this doesn't affect Logan. Logan is still Logan. You can still enjoy it. It's its own separate thing. You can enjoy Deadpool 3 for whatever it's going to be in its own thing. And I think even in the follow-up video that they released after the announcement, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds are kind of making fun of like what the story is going to be or how it's going to make sense. But really the main thing they let off with in that kind of gag video was that, Logan's set in the future, and that's the end ultimately, no matter what else happens. And this is going to be set in like current day, presumably, regardless of what the story is or like what universe it takes itself to. So I think that makes sense and that works. And I'm not like a big fan of the Deadpool movies in general. I mean, I think they're fun, like pretty light, disposable kind of action movies, action comedies. So maybe Hugh Jackman Wolverine can bring in some sort of maybe gravitas to that, or like elevate that to something more special than it would be if it was just Deadpool. So that's my optimism speaking there. But definitely a shock. I mean, when the news came through on the feed, I thought I had to double check and triple check. I thought it was like parody account or something. And it was
one of his
cool
like gin advertisements, because he did have the aviation gin in the teaser. It showed him like pouring glass, and I was like, oh, this is a gag.
Yeah. So like I really like how they also had a logo all prepared and the animation for that, and also the release date. So they did really good planning and like delivered when it comes to like presenting this for the fans and letting people in on it. And the fact that they were even able to keep it a secret is also like praiseworthy, I think, in today's environment. So fingers crossed, not going like flying up my anticipated list, but it's definitely on the radar for the next couple of years.
Another thing that I know you mentioned that Logan's in the future, that's the end. But at this point, like that, a lot of people pointed that out, that like this could be leading to that still. But also, you know, like with Multiverse of Madness, with everything that's happening here, like this could be,
Oh
who
yeah.
knows? It's a Wolverine variant. It's Wolverine from a different timeline. Who, like, this is, like you said, the X-Men stuff has always kind of been its own different thing, but
Yeah.
the possibilities are endless for how this could come about.
Yeah.
So
You're right.
we'll
And
have to see which way they take it.
exactly. And also, to you're talking about Multiverse of Madness, we know the Avengers movies are coming up, both Secret Wars and was it King's Dynasty or whatever it's called?
The Kang
Um the
Dynasty.
Kang Dynasty. Um I mean, who knows if this is going to be the only movie Hugh Jackman returns for? I mean, it seems like it just opens a box, right? So
Mm-hmm.
once he puts them back, puts the claws back on one time, who knows? Yeah, I mean, Secret Wars is the ultimate in the MCU. It's like the ultimate overlap and like ultimate convergence of different characters and universes. If you wanted to make it the ultimate event, something that can go toe to toe or bigger than Infinity War or Endgame, you know, bringing in someone like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, reprising that role, that's something that you expect. That's something that you should aim for, I think. And I'm sure Kevin Feige is already thinking about that and is involved to some degree with Deadpool. So, you know, it could be, you know, Hugh Jackman, it could be Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man again, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man again. I mean, who knows? I mean, the possibilities are actually endless. So this is an interesting, I think, maybe a clue or a hint of what we might see in those other movies. Again, for better or worse, depending on how you feel about all that.
Well, speaking of those other movies, Johnny, news this week of what may lie in store there. And that is what one thing that we do know. You just listed off a ton of speculation, a ton of potential what ifs. But what we do know is that Michael Waldron will write the upcoming Avengers Secret Wars film. Waldron, of course, was responsible for Loki and most recently Multiverse of Madness. One on the higher end of the spectrum and one on the lower. I know you're a huge fan of Loki. I enjoyed Loki quite a bit. Multiverse of Madness, one of the better Phase 4 movies, a lot due to Sam Raimi, but the script itself, the writing was left a lot to be desired. So this is, like you just hyped it up, the biggest potential movie of all time for Marvel, for all of these crossovers, everything that's happening.
Yeah.
Is this a vote of confidence for you that Waldron is going to be the one pinning that, or is this a hesitation?
I mean, it's no secret. I believe we talked about Multiverse of Madness to some degree on the show, and I've also talked about it at length, you know, online on Twitter. Not a huge fan of that movie. I definitely think some of the multiverse quote unquote stuff and like the Illuminati stuff is like the weakest part of it. Michael Waldron wrote, you know, this movie, the Multiverse of Madness I'm talking about. He also did Loki, as I think we mentioned. I'm a big fan of Loki, but a show is not a movie, and so I'm very nervous about, like, if the Illuminati sequence is anything to go off of based on what he thinks makes for good, I don't know, a crossover or cameo-esque stuff, or like just heroes fighting each other, that sort of thing. I'm very worried about that. And yeah, we know that it was done during COVID. We know there's probably reshoots, some things that were out of his control potentially. So I'm not going to write him off. I think he knows how to do certain things well, obviously with Loki. Hopefully he can think about what's worked well, what hasn't. He has a bigger sandbox to play with this movie, of course. So let's hope for the best. But I am I'm very worried, I would say. And I say very worried. I don't really care that much. I mean, if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, who cares? It's still going to make like $2 billion. So maybe it'll just be an entertaining like mess with ups and downs. But yeah, I mean, you would hope for it to be good. We still don't know who the director is. I think that's something to keep in mind as well. Could be someone amazing that could really elevate the material, even if the script isn't great. I know there's been rumors of maybe Marvel and Kevin Feige like trying to pursue like Ryan Coogler as an option coming off of Black Panther. If that movie's really great, it would kind of make sense for that. That's pretty much speculation, but we could see. And who knows? I mean, who knows? That's another thing. I think if they get a director that's really exciting, a lot of like worries might be alleviated. If it's someone who's really kind of questionable, then then all bets are off, I think. But we'll see. They have been having some director woes of late in the
I was about to
MCU.
say another one in
So
search of a director.
yeah, that's again another one of the more anticipated films out of that slate, like the upcoming slate for MCU is Blade. And we got news over the last week that it's set to film in November. It already been pushed back a little bit. It just got a release date set for next November 2023. And then we hear that, oh nope, they're actually doing a page one rewrite and the director is no longer involved with this movie. And it sounds like it was not a mutual decision necessarily. It sounds like Bassam Tariq, who was supposed to be directing the movie, may have been a little in over his head, and that he's going to be an executive producer only going forward, no longer involved with that production directly. So this was something I saw coming for months now, for various reasons. And
it was 2019 when Mahershala Ali was announced as Blade.
Jeez, yeah, that's right. It was at the big San Diego Comic-Con. So yeah, the excitement has significantly died down since then because it's been 3 years. I know there was a pandemic in there, but they've taken no advantage of that casting at all. I know Mahershala is obviously very busy and he has other movies going on, but I don't know. I'm sure he's frustrated. That's what the reports were saying. That he wants, the script was not good. The direction was not going the right direction. Be impressive, I think, to make few people feel comfortable like they're back on track. I know they have someone that was working with Disney and the MCU previously on the script now, doing that full rewrite. So we'll see what happens there. But I know there have been some rumors about maybe Gina Prince Blythewood would be doing it, coming off of The Woman King, which I think would be a really cool choice and inspired choice there. Maybe the Batgirl directors, now that they've been kind of kicked out of DC, maybe MCU will scoop them up. I think that wouldn't be too bad either. But it's just, there's a lot of unknowns at this point. I think one thing we can say is that this movie's not going to be released November of next year. I think that's pretty much out the window. There's no way they start filming next month. I mean, that's just period. So we'll see when they decide to delay it or announce the delay. It's a matter of when, not if, I think. So that's something to keep an eye on as well going forward for sure.
I can't remember, correct me if I'm wrong. This may have been your tweet that I'm about to reference, but I saw it tweeted somewhere that the real reason that they only had a voice and no body of Mahershala Ali of Blade in the post credits of Eternals was so that they could inevitably recast the character once Mahershala drops out because of all of this nonsense.
Yeah, I did tweet that, and hopefully it doesn't end up being true because I really like Mahershala. I think he would make it such a cool Blade. But he's a busy guy. He's a 2-time Oscar winner, and he deserves better projects than this mess. I mean, let's be totally blunt about it. So if there, maybe there's enough money on the table to keep him interested, maybe the direction they move over the next month or two will keep him on board. But it's always possible. I mean, we have not seen him yet in anything, so it's always possible they can recast and bring on someone else. Maybe someone else who will be just as good or better. We haven't seen anything from Ali yet, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Blade, I think, like I said this months ago prior, is keep your expectations in check because the MCU has been sloppy lately, and it's still sloppy at the moment. And there are other things that could be, maybe not as good as we expect or want them to be. So keep expectations in check. I think someone mentioned, and my brother told me that he saw someone compare the MCU right now in the wake of Endgame to The Office after Michael Scott left. So that's not a great comparison to draw, I would say, or parallel. So
right now we're in the Will Ferrell, the just the dark days.
We're in the dark days. So we'll see. It's an interesting time for sure. But we'll keep an eye out. And Black Panther, maybe that'll come out next month and everyone's gonna be forgetting about all this bad news and that'll be fine for a little while. So
well, we will have to wait and see. That's enough Marvel news. Moving right along to the rest of the news. The official lineup for Film Fest 919, the 5th year of the festival held right here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, has officially been announced. We've got quite the slate, Johnny, as far as big name movies. We've got at least one blockbuster, capital B blockbuster, I would say. Well, I don't even know. Do you even consider it a blockbuster at this point? Because it's going to have limited theatrical, but then go on Netflix. If the last one was any indicator, yes, I guess I'll call it a blockbuster. But at least one big one in Glass Onion, closing out the festival, the Knives Out sequel. We've got a big headliner in Devotion from J.D. Dillard, starring Jonathan Majors and Glenn Powell. A lot of stuff, good awards favorites sprinkled in here. Some really quality stuff. Johnny, give me your Johnny's awards radar, the Oscar take. What's the overall outlook of this festival before we head on over to Silver Spot Cinema in a couple of weeks to check it all out?
I think it's a solid lineup. I think it's got a good range of films, pretty diverse lineup, including some of the bigger, like more high profile award contenders, of course. Glass Onion being the closing night film, I think is great. I know the last one I went to in 2019 had Jojo Rabbit as the closing night film. I remember that won an Oscar and was a Best Picture nominee that year. So could be some high profile potential with that film alone. But then you also have The Banshees of Inisherin, which is Martin McDonagh's next film, which is very, very highly praised, coming out of places like Venice and TIFF, and will no doubt be a Best Picture nominee. Same with Women Talking, which could be a Best Picture winner potentially, with that ensemble. Sarah Polley's film going to have multiple acting nominations most likely. So really looking forward to that one. Those might be my top three. I'm also looking forward to some maybe less competitive films as far as awards are concerned, but stuff like we have Noah Baumbach's White Noise, which I'm really looking forward to. Adam Driver and Greta Gerwig. That'll be really fun. I love Marriage Story. Looking forward to a bigger, more like quirkier film, I think, from him there. Empire Light, Sam Mendes' film with Roger Deakins on cinematography for the first time in a few years. And then we also have Olivia Colman giving in another acting showcase. And then some other stuff like some foreign language films I'm looking forward to, non-English films like Close out of Belgium. Was a award-winning film at Cannes Film Festival over the summer. Armageddon Time with Jeremy Strong, Anne Hathaway, Anthony Hopkins.
Don't forget The Inspection with Jake's boy in it.
Yes, and The Inspection, that was the other one. Last one I was going to get to there that I'm looking forward to on my list is, yes, The Inspection. And I keep seeing that trailer whenever I go to the movies, so like it's sticking like really in my head now. So I'm looking forward to that. Pope's performance, the leading performance in that, looks Jeremy Pope, he looks very impressive, and it looks like a very much like a tear-jerking sort of film. Gabrielle Union looks impressive, like in the supporting role. So yeah, I think they have, like I said, diverse lineup. Like those are all very different movies, very different filmmakers, and like kind of a cast assembled there. So it's got a little bit of something for everyone. Really looking forward to seeing what the schedule looks like and getting up there back to Chapel Hill, Silver Spot, and getting back in the conversation about some
the old stomping ground.
Yeah, old stomping grounds, man. Reviewing and discussing films and whatnot, seeing everyone, always a good time.
For sure. This is a festival that we've been covering since day one, since the very first year. That was back in the day. I covered the first one for the Daily Tar Heel and have since been doing them all for Inside the Film Room. So we are loyal patrons of Film Fest 919. And, this is a great film festival, just to hype it up a little bit, a great festival that we're really lucky to have in our backyard, because last year, the fourth year, was the very first time that the eventual Best Picture winner was not shown at the program. From the very first year being Green Book to then Parasite and Nomadland, having a 3-year run to start off the festival. People might think that, a festival in Chapel Hill isn't going to have these top tier contenders, but it most certainly does. And then last year, it may not have had Coda, but King Richard was there, Spencer was there, a lot of these top acting contenders, just award season all around. Really has a good opportunity for us to be able to get feet on the ground and be able to check these out, because we're not going to TIFF or to Venice or to Cannes. Just but being able to have that at Film Fest
Yet.
909 is awesome. Not yet, you're right. But for anyone out there listening who is local in North Carolina or interested in attending, the festival kicks off on October 19th. That's a Wednesday. That's when we have the opening showing of Devotion, and the director will be in attendance as well, JD Dillard. And the festival runs through Sunday evening with the closing showing of Glass Onion. And passes are no longer available, but individual tickets will go on sale on October 11th. So you can go ahead and snag your tickets once those hit next Tuesday. So great festival, support it if you can. We love Film Fest 919, and we're happy to be headed back this year for more coverage. But enough news for the week. Johnny, we've got 2 reviews that we want to talk about. You know, not full-length reviews. We're calling this a mini review segment. Don't Worry, Darling, and Hocus Pocus 2. Let's start things off with Don't Worry, Darling. Let me lay the groundwork, set the foundation, and then we'll dive in. Olivia Wilde directing. Florence Pugh, Harry Styles, Olivia Wilde starring, Gemma Chan, Kiki Lane, Chris Pine, and Nick Kroll as well. Currently at a 39% critic score and 75% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. So very, very big split there. This was a 57 for me out of 100. Johnny, you are coming in at a 59. And here's the plot. Alice and Jack live in the idealized community of Victory, the experimental company town housing where the husbands spend every day inside the Victory Project headquarters and their wives enjoy the beauty, luxury, and debauchery of their community. Life is perfect, with every resident's needs met by the company. All they ask in return is discretion and unquestioning commitment to the Victory cause. But when cracks in her idyllic life begin to appear, exposing flashes of something much more sinister lurking beneath the attractive facade, Alice can't help questioning exactly what they're doing in Victory and why. Just how much is Alice willing to lose to expose what's really going on in this paradise? I'll start. Anyone who knows me, who's listened to this podcast, knows of my love of Booksmart, my love of Olivia Wilde heading into this movie. I mentioned it earlier in the podcast. This was my number 1 most anticipated movie for the whole year, pretty much leading into this last month. Just because of how much I love Booksmart and believed in Olivia Wilde, I was so excited to watch this. Love Florence Pugh, obviously. Interested in Harry Styles. And then you know, all this stuff started happening. There's all this this drama. We don't have to get into all of the different discourses and whatnot, but a ton of drama surrounding this film. And it seemed like every day you could not get online without seeing a new story break about Florence Pugh and Shia LaBeouf and Olivia Wilde, and did Harry Styles spit on Chris Pine, and Harry Styles not knowing how to describe a movie, and just like all of this nonsense. And so the combination of that with early film festival reviews being less than stellar made this very, very quickly slip. You know, like I said, I was most anticipated film, and then ended up seeing this on a Tuesday following its release. I was at Avatar on day 1 instead of this. So that was just my approach to this movie. And I don't know if you had a similar, I know you weren't nearly as excited for it as I was, but you were still intrigued in this before everything that happened. What was how did your mindset change, I guess, before you actually got to sit down and watch this movie? Did it change?
It didn't change that much. I mean, I had some curiosity about the movie. I thought the cast was really intriguing. I love Chris Pine. Big fan of Florence Pugh, of course. Harry Styles, liked him in Dunkirk. I think I like him as a musical artist. And so I was interested to see what Olivia Wilde was going to do next, because I also liked Booksmart. Was pretty big fan of that. So I wasn't on the same hype as you. Obviously, this was not even close to towards my top of the year. But I did, want it to be good. And then as we got closer and closer and all the drama was piling up, which is its own thing, I was just exhausted. I'm like, oh God, this movie, like, just come out already. I don't even know if I want to see it at this point, blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, I have the A-list and I wanted to go on a fun little date night movie. So I was like, all right, let's go see it. And, it has some style, it has some flair, it has some intrigue, it has Florence Pugh, doing her thing. It's not, I've seen people say it's her best performance yet. I don't think I would agree with that necessarily. I
No,
mean,
me either.
I'm a huge Midsommar fan, and I think that is still her crowning achievement. I'm also a really big fan of her in Little Women. So I think I would still put those ahead, but it was good. And you know, I think other than that, like it looks great for the most part. The cinematography, the production design, the costumes, those sorts of things, all very period accurate and flashy in that regard. Um, but as far as the story and the script, I mean, you summed it up very well on Letterboxd in the little review you did. I thought that that was
Yes,
nicely
I
done.
that was my Spark Notes well, I guess on this Google Doc I put my Spark Notes version, but
Right.
it was really just like a bullet point kind of breakdown of all of the different thoughts that I had there. So we can briefly go over that because this may have been like my longest letterbox review. um, but first and foremost, I guess let me talk about the good first because I don't want to be all negative. Like you said, Florence Pugh, amazing, big fan of her as an actress. She chewed up Harry Styles and spit him out, like absolutely blew him out of the water in every single scene they were in. And that's like not even like meaning to like shit on Harry Styles, but that's just how good she is. And he was bad, but she made him look even worse because of how good she was. And I agree with you, very stylish movie. The production design was great, made me want to go. I've never been to Palm Springs, but I imagine that would be a cool replica of this, maybe not the 1950s style, but just the tone, the mood, the overall feel of it was very cool, very immersive, which obviously was the point when they're in this sort of, spoiler alert, like simulation. But let's talk about the negative. Those are my two positives, the two redeeming factors here. I think this is a big movie that has a lot of big ideas. It's a movie that really feels like a movie, to quote its star. It wants to say a lot about a lot of different things, but nothing ever really feels fully fleshed out. Because it's just like, okay, we're talking about female empowerment and men and women gender roles, and I don't know, it's been too long since I've seen this at this point, but like there's just so much going on, but nothing ever like fully dived into. But like the two biggest ones that it is supposedly like tackling are like the ideas like female pleasure and feminism. Like Olivia Wilde has said, like there's lots of sex scenes in this movie and only the women finish in this movie because it's all about female pleasure. Which, like, how are you saying that in a movie that is the outcomes and twist are so juxtaposed with that idea? Like when it's about someone being held captive and like being like violated against their consent and all of this stuff, but it's like a movie about female pleasure. Like what? how does that make sense at all?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like one easy step to making this movie better is like narrow the focus. Don't try and tackle every single topic in the world, but instead focus in on a couple, really explore those, and don't spread yourself so thin. I will turn the mic to you for a rebuttal or agreeal or anything. Agreeal, that's not a word.
No, I mean you're spot on. That's why I said I think your letterbox review was very concise and apt. Olivia Wilde did herself no favors with the way that this movie was discussed and talked about, I think. And once you see the movie, it becomes that much more obvious, unfortunately. It has some things it's thinking about, maybe trying to get it across to the audience, but it never really makes all that much sense or really goes to a logical conclusion, maybe is how I would describe it. It's just not like it's just not a satisfying movie. Like up to the last shot and like the very end, I would say it's just not satisfying, unfortunately. And I do credit her in some regards because she did some cool things like visually, and I think with some of the editing, the sound design I thought was excellent. The score was very interesting. I did find the score a little overbearing, I would say. Like I think that's just the that's the director's choice, is just when and how to use it. Like I felt like it was being used like constantly and like over the top in some ways. And then also just just certain things, like the way I think this is an issue. It's like a balance between issues with the screenplay and issues with the direction. Um, just the way certain characters are maybe introduced, or like the way you're trying to set certain things up between characters, or like relationships. We know that one of the characters, I believe it was Kiki Lane's character, did not I guess her subplot was like cut out substantially, like not given like the full
Yeah, she posted that they were
view.
completely edited from the movie, basically.
And so, like, I mean, that's fine. Like, I get the editing happens, certain things have to be cut, but like, I feel like you can almost feel that or tell that, and it doesn't really, it doesn't result in like the best, like most fluid storytelling, I think. And yeah, it was kind of repetitive as well. Like, I feel like a lot of times it's, oh man, something weird's going on, and Florence Pugh's noticing it, and then okay, wait, maybe it's not going weird, and then oh wait, no, it's weird again, and it's all stressful, and Florence Pugh is all freaked out, and then oh, okay, no wait, it's not. That, I mean, that'll happen literally, like that exact back and forth happens like 3 times in a row,
Right.
Before something new happens.
It's that's like my other big discussion point here, is that like, the first act is like interesting enough as it's setting the scene, and then that second act really drags, where it does this like back and forth, like you're talking about. Like, it's anyone who, this is my biggest thing here, is that like this twist, like there's a twist. Anyone who saw the trailer for the movie knows that there's a twist coming. It's very evident that like something is up. This idealistic utopia is not what it seems. Something is wrong. Florence Pugh is realizing it. When is she going to find out? What is she going to find out? So with all that being said, you've seen the trailer, you're literally sitting down for this movie and you know a twist is coming, but so much is just spent waiting for that twist to happen. The reveal is coming, and then it finally does, but it's far too late. There's hardly any time for a resolution. I feel like, I don't know what the actual runtime timing is, but it feels like the twist is revealed and then 20 minutes later the movie's over. I feel like the biggest thing here is that move the twist earlier and allow there to be more time spent in the fallout, dealing with it, finding a resolution or not a resolution, what have you, both, instead of just like rushing straight to the credits afterward. And even further, I feel like this is what I've found, like a big missed opportunity. Like, again, I mean, I'm not a filmmaker, I'm not a writer, a director, anything like that, so I'm not claiming to be an expert, but I thought this was really cool. Like, because people have compared this to like, in not in like quality or anything, but like compared it in tone to like a Get Out or a Truman Show, or like these sort of like existential twisting, like crazy twist things that happen. So with all the knowledge of a twist, what if there hadn't been that knowledge? If this movie had been like, oh, you've got Florence Pugh, you've got Harry Styles living in Palm Springs, how fun. Like, I would still go see that movie just to hang out with two fun, attractive people and live this idealistic life. Like, what if this was just advertised as a rom-com or something, a relationship drama, and then you're sitting and halfway through this twist happens and it's like absolutely like a Parasite level, like, oh my god, this is not what I thought it was, Barbarian level, just to recently name one. I feel like that would have been so much more attention grabbing. It would have people talking of like, oh my god, you have to go see Don't Worry Darling, you don't want to know what the twist is, like that kind of word of mouth discussion too. So I don't know, I feel like that's just like the complete opposite of what we ended up getting here, which is just like waiting, it happened, it's over.
I mean, you're spot on there. That's another thing where Olivia Wilde was like, this is like the Matrix and Inception and the Truman Show, and you reference all these different things you're taking, I guess, inspiration from, which is totally fine. But again, you're setting a certain expectation, and also you're inviting comparisons to movies that a lot of people say are masterpieces. Like, I just don't know if like that's the best way to set yourself up, or like sell the movie, because then you're kind of maybe putting the bar a little too high, or like putting a certain mindset on folks before they really get this movie to like see what it is for themselves, or like have it be its own thing, and it does not even come close to matching any of those movies, and those are all very different movies. But it is what it is. And hopefully, I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen next with Olivia Wilde, but
we'll Madam Web, right?
Is she directing that?
I believe she's doing Madam Web, and then there was another original comedy, I think, that her and Katie Silverman, the writer here, were working on.
What in the
But
world?
one I may be off. I feel like she was Madam Web.
I think she
Somebody
was like Spider Woman or something.
Oh, that might be it. Spider
I'll
Woman.
look.
Yeah, someone fact check me.
I'm fact checking right now.
But no, I know I kind of alluded to the spoiler, but quick full spoiler here. Like resolution at the end, like she escapes, but does she really? Because she still wakes up chained to this bed in the real world
Oh,
next to her dead husband. Like
yeah,
she's still screwed. She's not saved.
yeah.
Like this is not a happy ending. So
Yeah, well, they also said that they were like going to come and try to kill her or something. Like, I get like she escapes from it or whatever, but like, yeah, I don't really know what that ending is supposed to mean, and maybe that's why they just let it not show what happens next, or it just cuts to black, and it's just like,
mhm.
well, I guess we'll never know, or like, I guess she escaped and she's all fine now. Doesn't really make that much sense. It is sloppy, it is messy. Olivia Wilde is next directing. She's in pre-production, I believe, for a um true life drama based on an American gymnast trying to overcome like an injury at the Olympics, that has McKenna Grace and Thomasin McKenzie as the leads of that movie. So that'll be interesting. I think that might be a good change of pace for her. And then she's attached to a supposed Sony Spider Man Marvel project, and it seems like it might be Spider Woman or something like that. So we'll see if that ever comes
My
to
bad.
fruition.
Spider Woman, Madam Web, same thing.
We'll see if that ever happens. But yeah, don't worry, darling. Honestly, it's just not that interesting or good, unfortunately. So put a nail in the coffin, move on to the next
Stop
one.
casting Harry Styles until he
Oh,
gets better at acting.
hey,
Train him. Train him.
I can't disagree. He does need to do something a little more down to earth, maybe, before going to anything else.
Well, changing gears very dramatically to Hocus Pocus 2, our other discussion as far as films go. Groundwork, here we go. Directed by Anne Fletcher, starring the OGs Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy, while also adding some new players in Tony Hale, Hannah Waddingham, and Sam Richardson. Currently sitting at a 61% critic score, 55% audience score. Inside the film room scores, Zach is at a 74 out of 100, and Johnny, you are 65 out of 100. So a little less, but still pretty aligned on this.
Mhm.
And the plot is here. It's been 29 years since someone lit the black flame candle and resurrected the 17th century sisters, and they are looking for revenge. Now it is up to 3 high school students to stop the ravenous witches from wreaking a new kind of havoc on Salem before dawn on All Hallows Eve. So pretty standard, legacy. I don't know if you'd consider it a legacy sequel or what, but this is we're getting the gang back together. We're running it back. This is 29 years after the 1993 original Hocus Pocus. And I know I mentioned it off the top when you had asked me if I'd seen the original. So I want to talk about briefly just like what the original, like our relationships to it. It sounds like you just watched it for the very first time leading into this. Myself, I definitely remembered watching this as a child. But I was not like this, like you said earlier, it has this kind of like cult following. There are millennials who quote this is their personality from like late September to Halloween. And that has never been me. However, when I posted my review of this, my mother responded to my Instagram story and was like, I was so eager to hear what you thought of this. I was like, why? Like, was I a Hocus Pocus kid? And she's like, you guys loved Hocus Pocus so much. And I was like, this is not ringing a bell. Like, I knew that we watched it, but I was not like I didn't think I was obsessed with it. So maybe I liked it a lot more than I let on. But all that to say, I watched the original one and the second one back to back. And I thought the original one was like fine. It was like you said, very much a product of its time. And didn't really do a ton for me. I know it's obviously catered towards a younger audience, and without having that like nostalgic feel to it that some people who are big fans had, it was just fine. But then I watched the second one and I thought it was a whole lot better. I really liked it more than the first one, which I don't know if fans will like accuse me of sacrilege there, but I liked the modern twist on this one, you know, bringing these characters back, but also fleshing them out with much more interesting, compelling. We got a new trio of teenagers plus those adults that I mentioned, with Tony Hale and Sam Richardson really playing big comedic roles here, and adding on to it. My queen Hannah Waddingham only in maybe like 60 seconds of this movie, but definitely getting that bag. So props to her. But what were your thoughts here, Johnny?
Yeah, so I watched Hocus Pocus for the very first time in full the night before I watched this one, or maybe a night or two before I watched it, and wasn't a huge fan. I liked it. It was fun, fairly charming, like Halloween entertainment. I thought that this was a bit smarter and a bit funnier in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ways. I think more thoroughly. I enjoyed the kids more, I think, as far as that goes. Like I didn't think the kids like in the original movie were like terribly
Too horny.
interesting.
Too
Too
horny.
horny, maybe. That's entirely valid. But I liked the dynamic, like the friendship at the heart of this movie. I thought was pretty good. And like the kind of parallels between the witches and the friends and that sort of thing. I
Mm-hmm.
thought was pretty well done. I thought that the humor was pretty funny throughout. The more kind of modern quirks as far as like those things go, the Walgreens scene, for example, definitely one of the highlights, I guess I would say, even though it's
Agreed.
blatant.
And the Roombas
Yes,
as
exactly.
her broom.
Yeah, so after she had the vacuum in the original movie. So yeah, lots of different cool parallels, lots of funny bits. I also love the prologue where we get to see the witches as children, and Tony Hale gets to be in that scene and also shows
Yeah,
up
I
throughout
liked
the
that
movie.
connection, the like ancestral connection. So Tony Hale could play both characters. That was a
Yeah,
fun nod to basically allow that to like a plot device, I guess, but it worked really well.
yeah, and
Um,
I thought those kids were good as well, like inhabiting the witches. Like I thought that their like impersonations were very well
mhm.
done. So that was fun. So yeah, I thought just beginning to end, I thought like minute for minute, I thought that this was just a little bit more solid overall and just a good fun, enjoyable Halloween movie. And there were some good musical numbers in there. And the ladies still have it. You know, the original witches all these years later
Oh, for sure.
still doing a great job. Look great, sound great, super fun. And
It
yeah, I
was
thought it
it
was
was
just
very clear
a nice
that
addition.
they were so eager to get back in, like this was like a project made with love, that like they cherish these characters. They were able to like turn it back on, slip back in perfectly to these roles without missing a beat. And that showed up on film. um I still
Mhm.
think Sarah Jessica Parker, Sarah Sanderson is my favorite of the three
Yeah.
sisters. A real scene stealer. But one of the things here that I think I really appreciated about this movie is that, like, yes, it is still 100% a cash grab, you know, like a nostalgia play, a sequel 30 years down the line to really just cash in on the fandom, on nostalgia, bringing back that's what they're doing with remakes, reboots, sequels, all these. um but this was very well done, I would say, in the fact that like that may have been like part of it, but it wasn't the full thing. I feel like this had meaning. It had a reason for existing, a good purpose here. It didn't feel like, okay, we're just gonna figure out whatever we can to move this along with like a cheap plot. But like I really liked all the elements with Gilbert, with Sam Richardson's character being incorporated in the first movie, and that he had been like devoted to them this whole time and pursuing magic, and that he was the one who lit the candle, and that like everything seemed to have good reason. I mean, as much reason as like a silly, spooky Halloween movie could have. Um, but I don't know. I don't know if that, correct me if I'm wrong, not if I'm wrong, but if you felt otherwise. Um, But I thought that that was very well done, rather than just being a cash grab, but also feeling like a cash grab.
Yeah, so I think I agree that it didn't feel like so haphazard and so like thoughtless as far as like just creating something for a streaming service. Even though it is that, I thought it was still fun and like did do well enough to connect back to the original while still doing its own thing.
Mhm.
I still felt like there was some passion there and like some genuine like care for the material. And like again, it's a cult classic. It's not going to appeal to everyone necessarily. It is campy. It is for kids. I mean, technically, so like it's its own thing. But I thought it still paired fairly well with the original and I don't hold the original like the highest regard like some people might, but I thought that these go like pretty well, like 1 and 2 together, and will be enjoyable for kids to watch, I think, going forward.
I'm interested to see how, like, obviously one audience is going from the original to this, and that's like the older audience who has an affinity for the original and is maybe like less charmed with this. I'm curious if like those children that you reference, this is a kids movie, if they're starting with two and they're like, oh, that was good, let me go watch the original, or if it's like us,
Mhm.
they're like, let me go back and watch the original and then this. Because I feel like as like a Gen Z kid or some, like, I don't even know what's the other generation, the younger kids, who are actual children, like if they would watch Hocus Pocus 2, I feel like they'd be like disappointed to then go back to Hocus Pocus 1, after watching something like, new, modern of 2022, and then go back to the early 90s. Maybe not as exciting for
Right.
them. So, but I will say, despite a potentially lower score on Rotten Tomatoes with the audience at 54%, um, Disney Plus announced that this was their best streaming movie release as far as viewing goes to date. So obviously you've got Pixar movies in there. You've got I doubt that includes like the day and date purchases of like a Black Widow or something like that. Um, but
Yeah.
still, even just like comparing this to like Soul or Luca or something like that, um, that's pretty big for this, I think. And I feel like this could have done really well in theaters with a new audience, with that returning nostalgic audience as well. But I had a
Yeah.
good time with it. I like this more than the original one. It was good to be back with these characters, and I feel like there's a post credit scene because it's Disney, and who knows, we could be getting Hocus Pocus 3 down the line.
Yeah, I mean, you really never know with Disney. It's entirely possible. I wouldn't be totally opposed to it. I mean, who know, when I say who knows, like what that concept would look like, if it would be worthwhile or not. But you know, keep an open mind. It's not something. This isn't something like, oh my God, you can't possibly follow up this, so you can't touch this material. Like it's just a fun thing. I think that they can always add on to potentially if there's an idea that makes sense.
Agreed. Well, there you have it. Don't worry, darling. Hocus Pocus 2. It's time for our final discussion of the day. It's time to dive into House of the Dragon, episode 7. So, since it has been a few weeks since our last podcast, that also means it's been a few weeks since we talked House of the Dragon. We have not spoken about this show since episode 4. So 5, 6, and now 7 have all happened in the meantime. That includes quite a bit of this story, but starting with episode 7 here, the most recent one, titled Driftmark. As the families gather on Driftmark for Lena's funeral, Viserys calls for an end to the infighting, and Alicent demands justice. It's your little synopsis from HBO Max. I feel like even though this is not a new thing for episode 7, we have not talked about the time jump yet that happened in between episode 5 and episode 6. So I want to address that off the top. Obviously going from the young Rhaenyra, young Alicent, to then the older versions here, with Emma Darcy and Olivia Cook losing Millie Alcock and Emily Carey. What any issues with I mean, obviously we came to love those two young actresses playing the younger versions. People were huge fans, but I know some people were like, I'm gonna stop watching House of the Dragon because these actresses are gone. Like, first of all, we're 5 episodes committed to this, and it's a Game of Thrones show. Get over it. But for me, at least, there was no drop off. I feel like both of these people, the comparison, like it was a seamless transition. Like, sure, it was a significant age jump, but as far as personality, attitude, embodiment of the character, there was no drop off for me. I don't know if you felt the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely not someone who was like, oh my God, like, what are we gonna do? Like, how can they possibly replace? Like, I thought Millie Alcock was great. I thought Emily Carey was great, but they, I definitely don't get so attached. I'm like, no one else could possibly play this role, especially if they're aging up. Like, people change from the time they're 15 or 20 to the time when they're 30. You know what I mean? Like, there is going to be a significant difference emotionally, mentally, physically. So I don't have any issues with that. And I think that I was confident that we would see, success as far as acting wise with Olivia Cook, with Emma Darcy. And I thought they both delivered very well to get started. And then they've continued that into this week's episode as well. So 2 episodes in, I think that they are consistent, and they're keeping the tone. It is a different, again, the characters, we say they're the same character, but the people you are at those ages not the same you are at the younger ages. So like, it makes sense that they would have play with different personality traits and those sorts of things, different temperaments even. So I think some things have been like I said, consistent and carried over well, and some things they've made changes, and I think those have worked from what I can tell. And I again, really like how the series is doing something I don't think I've really seen in another show, at least like something this major, where they are recasting so often. They are doing these huge time jumps.
This is happening very quickly. Like, on top of the 2 lead actresses, we got a new Lena, new Laenor. Like, the Valerian children were growing up as well. We have the current children of Rhaenyra and Alicent, and it looks like in next week in episode 8 they will be replaced by older actors as well. And this is all happening in 8 episodes of season 1, where we're switching all of these. I saw some people saying like, oh, you should have given Millie and Emily a whole season to flesh out their characters and then have the jump for season 2. But we're obviously setting the stage for the years to come that'll be unfolding in the next couple seasons of House of the Dragon. But again, no issues, no complaints on my front for the time jump. I really love these characters already, and the way that they're being portrayed by both actors, both performers. So no worries there. But let's talk about this specific episode here, episode 7. Ton of stuff to unpack here. And one thing off the top, I've seen a lot of people discussing it, and I want to get your thoughts on it before we get into like the plot and whatnot. But the look of this episode, the day for night shooting, these are some of the first stills that we saw of Matt Smith and Emma Darcy on the beach in broad daylight. And then when we see it in the episode, it's actually the middle of the night. There's like this gray filter basically over a lot of this episode. I know we've seen it in things like Nope and in Dune, a lot of movies recently using a day for night shooting. What was your take? I personally, like, it was dark, but it was meant to be dark. Like, I was able to see it just fine. I was watching in a fully dark room on a Samsung QLED TV. Like, I didn't complain about it. I've seen people talking on Twitter about not being able to see anything, comparing it to the long night, and just like finding reasons to complain about it. But I had no issues once again. Johnny, I don't know about you.
Oh man, yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I didn't have any issues with it. Just like it's like, I mean, come on, at this point, I get not everyone is watching it on the same device. Some people are watching on their phones, probably. Some people are watching on a tablet or a laptop. Some people are watching on a smaller, maybe not as expensive TV. Some people are watching on a huge TV, maybe a very nice TV. It is what it is. Also, keep in mind, this is like, depending on, let's talk about devices. You want to talk about internet connection, the compression, the internet speed that you might be using for this. So I get not everyone's gonna have the same experience, and I don't want to come off as like elitist or like you need to have this particular device. You should be able to afford this type of internet, blah blah. But I think it's just like the constant talk about this show, like the way this comes up in certain things. And this is something they talked about even with like people watch trailers for movies online and they're like, oh, this is too dark, you can't see anything. And then they go and watch the movie and they're like, actually, it wasn't that bad. Or like when you actually see it in its proper format or when it's finally color graded, it looks fine. I thought it was perfectly dark. I didn't think that it was ugly. I didn't think that it was indistinguishable about what was going on. I thought it worked. I thought it looked good. I want nighttime to look like nighttime. I don't want it to look like something where it's broad daylight out and you can see everything, every little detail perfectly. I thought I could make out all the details on Vagar. I could see what Aemon was doing. I could see what Rhaenyra was doing with Daemon. And so I thought that I didn't have any issue with that. And I was kind of surprised. I remembered the long night stuff. And to show that I'm not just blindly defending this universe, like the decisions, Miguel Sapochnik did the long night as well as this episode. I thought the long night was genuinely atrocious. Like I thought you could not see anything in that episode. I thought that was way too dark. I thought with the action sequences, especially the way certain things were shot and lit and colored, I thought that was not well handled and just not as good. This, I thought I had no issues with it. It was very simple scenes, nothing too crazy. And I actually thought the dragon sequence in particular was stunning, the way that was brought to life and executed. So that was the highlight, one of the highlights at least of the episode, and probably the best dragon scene we've ever gotten, at least as far as like a flying scene is concerned. And I thought
absolutely massive dragon. Shout out Vagar being a tank, absolute unit.
Yeah, no, seriously, like Vagar is I mean, one of the biggest the biggest dragon we've ever seen in the show, but just one of the biggest dragons I've seen in any media, I would say. The only thing I could think of bigger would be maybe Smaug from the Hobbit movies, for example. But yeah, really, really cool effects, really cool sequence there, just kind of touching on that more, where we have Aemon claiming Vagar and commanding Vagar. I was nervous. I was really nervous that something was going to happen. Not only when he was trying to calm Vagar down, but also after Aemon climbs on top of her and actually takes off and is like hanging by a thread almost, and is able to kind of calm things down and take better control. And of course that leads into like the main conflict of the episode, like the scene stealing, show stopping kind of conflict where Aemon, gets a throwdown with the other kids and loses.
I was convinced that a kid was going to die. I didn't know if it was going to be Aemon on the dragon, if the dragon was going to throw him off, going to flame him, if it was going to be one of the kids during this throwdown that you're talking about. But like I've been hurt far too many times by Thrones killing off a character that I was just like, my guard was up and I was ready. So I was honestly shocked when I even had thoughts for a moment that Alicent was gonna get killed.
Oh man,
during the showdown, and I was like, this is anyone's fair game in this show, as we have learned from the original Thrones. But
yeah,
no, the drama between the children fighting was really stellar child acting. All of these kids have really done the most with their parts. I saw a behind the scenes clip of them during the fight sequence, and they're like in between scenes, and the director tells them to like do jumping jacks really quick because he wants them to be out of breath, and they're like being silly, jumping jacks, and then go straight into it, getting choked out and like yelling at each other. And I'm like, this is such a cool reminder that like these are, I don't know, like 9-year-olds to 13-year-olds probably that are like doing this whole thing. So it just puts it into perspective and made it a whole lot more impressive that these children were playing such a huge part in such a prestige drama. But no, the children fighting, the fallout of that, the extremely tense standoff between mothers, between families, and all of that following this wonderful funeral scene that opens the episode, in which like 9 different plots are unfolding at once with very little being said, but the way that the camera moves between each of them tells the full story between Viserys and Daemon, Viserys and Alicent and Kristen Cole, Rhaenyra and Daemon, the children, the Valerians. Like it was really just a masterful execution of that scene, which set the stage for everything to come.
Yeah, no, that's I think a great way of putting it. And you know, as we said, we're aging these folks up, and they are now taking these adult roles as these characters. Some of these primarily Rhaenyra and Alicent, of course, and then also the actors for characters, the Valerians, for example, Laenor and Laena. Laena, you know, was killed in episode 6. You know, was going into childbirth and was having a similar issue to what happened with Aema in episode 1. And Daemon was kind of stuck in a similar scenario where he was like, well, maybe would it be better to, like, you know, can we save, like, you know, Laena instead? The child, you know, is not going to be able to make it. But it looks like, you know, at that point, of course, Laena goes out and decides to have like a fiery death rather than being left a victim like in the child bed. But from there, you know, Laenor's actor also changes in the time jump, and Laenor being a big part of this episode. I mean, this episode, most recent one, number 7, was called Driftmark. That is the home of the Valerians, and that was the focal point, you know, geographically speaking, for the episode. But also, a lot of this was kind of focused on the future of that house. Corlys was talking about his legacy with Rhaenys, and you know, his name being, you know, the most important thing, not blood. But, you know, he knows that Rhaenyra's kids are not his own, that they are not Laenor's actual children, but Laenor is claiming them, like he is, you know, putting on that he is the father, to be, like, you know, a good partner and a good king consort for Rhaenyra. And so Corlys is thinking, well, as long as I can have them and they can take over Driftmark and they can lead, you know, that's what I would rather see. And at the end of it all, we know Laenor does not want to really be involved in the Game of Thrones and just wants to be able to be himself and, like, live his own life. He does acknowledge, I like the scene between him and Rhaenyra where he says, you know, I've been not up to par for, like, my expectations and what I should be for you and, like, for the children. And I'm willing to, you know, take that responsibility and be different, like, going forward. And I thought that was great because it did show Laenor was not, like, just a deadbeat in that regard. Like, he was willing to take responsibility, and he was acknowledging, like, how he had been not meeting her needs and the needs of the family. And so I thought that left it at a great point where there was a mutual understanding and an acceptance. And then it swerves one way where we think Rhaenyra is turning on Laenor and pretty much killing him and putting him to the sword for her own gains. And then we get one of the best, I think genuinely one of the best twists, a very quick twist, kind of back and forth one way and the other, zigzag. But one of the best, most memorable twists in the show. I was genuinely, like, jumping up out of my couch and, like, clapping when we see that a difference from the book, as has been mentioned multiple times online now. Laenor dies in the book, a different death. Here, he lives. He shaves his head. There is a seemingly secret deal between himself, Rhaenyra, Daemon, and Carl to fake a fight between the two of them. Daemon kills a guard on Driftmark, which is it's not
R.I.P. Pour one out for that guy.
Yeah, R.I.P. I like that because, you know, it still has, like, there's some moral like ambiguity or, like, grayness there, right? Like, they're doing a good thing by freeing Laenor, but they are killing, like, an innocent man in the process. And I think that shows that, you know, for the royals and for the highborns and those folks, they don't, you know, everyone else is just a pawn to them in a lot of ways. The common folk, they want to be good leaders, but they are willing to do what it takes. You know, a single life to them is meaningless in the grander scheme. So they did kill an innocent man and charred his body to the point he was unrecognizable. And that allowed Laenor to escape with Carl on their little boat, and they're going to go live a happy ending, it seems like, in the East. And I really like that. I thought that was a great, happy kind of conclusion to all of that discourse between Laenor and his parents, Laenor and Rhaenyra, Leonor and even Carl to some degree. So hopefully they'll have a happy life over there. And I don't suspect, because it is a change from the book, it's possible we'll see another change where maybe Leonor comes back into the picture down the road.
That's the question, isn't it?
Can't rule that out, but I wouldn't mind if we never see him again, and if that's just how it ends, because I think it just leaves it open to interpretation. Maybe they don't live happily ever after. Maybe there's some other darker outcome, or they do, and no one ever finds out, or he does come back maybe to try to help or rescue. But I think that opens just too many cans of worms. I hope that they kind of just leave it as is, and then
it's so uncharacteristic, though, to have Game of Thrones just hand out a happy ending like this to a pair of lovers and let them, just live out their days together. Like you said, it's still ambiguous. You don't know for sure, but one thing, the prospect of it.
Yeah, the prospect, exactly, like the idea. And I think one thing that I liked, or that someone mentioned online that I agree with, is that, as you mentioned, you don't get to see a lot of happy endings in Game of Thrones in Westeros. So I think it's kind of like a change of pace. Like, it's a little bit to keep things fresh, I feel, because how many people are we going to see murdered or burned or, maimed between now and the end of the series? I mean, a lot of people, maybe the entire cast by the time everything's said and done. So I think it makes perfect sense to just go ahead and say, hey, instead of this guy being murdered just like everyone else and having, a miserable life that just ends in violence, let's just say, arrangements were made and he makes an escape and lives happily ever after. Like, or at least, again, it is a little ambiguous, so it's not even crystal clear as far as happy versus sad, etc. Like, we'll he just escapes on a boat and who knows what happens. We'll just leave it be. I think that would be the best route to go. But I thought it was just a great ending, and of course that also coincides with the wedding, which is between Daemon and Rhaenyra, finally tying the knot after much ups and downs and tension and all sorts of things for the last 10 years, 10, 15 years of their lives together. And I was happy to see that, of course, in a sick way, obviously, because there's a lot of issues within that dynamic that we maybe won't go into necessarily, but it was kind of undeniable. Like, I expected it to happen, and so they seem happy. That seems to be what they want. So I guess we'll see where that goes. But
obviously that will set the stage for it was a very successful wedding, and the fact that nobody got brutally killed there, like we've seen at so many previous Westerosi weddings, but a very small, intimate wedding as well. We had what seemed to be some sort of priest officiant. I'm not sure if that was I didn't recognize it, if that was a character we know. And then we had the bride and the groom and the children, Daemon's children with Laena, and then Rhaenyra's children with Sir Harwin, aka not Laenor. Which, question for them, how did they feel about the recent death of both of their parents, or fake death, and just seeing their parents instantly remarry? But with it being such an intimate ceremony, we will see the fallout of this, because word will travel fast, I would imagine, that these two are uniting. So we'll see the fallout of Alicent's reaction, Viserys's reaction. We'll see if Viserys still wants to stop the infighting and unite, or what the case is here. But really, really excited to see where this goes next week. The following, it's sad that we're already on episode 8, basically, that we only have 3 more Sundays of House of the Dragon until who knows how long, until season 2. But all of this discussion has to end in our favorite segment here, stock up, stock down. What are you buying? What are you selling? Anything you want to hold this week, as we move into the final portion here of season 1?
Oh man, you lead it off. I'm curious to see.
I think, let's see, we've got a ton of players in the game here.
Ooh, okay, I got one for you. I mean, he took a little bit of a bump in this episode, but hey, it was worthwhile for the fair trade he got.
Oh,
Aemon
certainly.
claimed Vagar, the biggest, baddest dragon in the entire world, and brought it over to Team Green. So
I was
um,
trying to decide if I wanted my stock up to be for Amon particularly, because I'm still trying to figure out if it was an overall win for Team Green throughout the episode. Because, like, yes,
mhm,
that dragon is huge, but then like Alicent got exposed basically. They did get Otto back into the fold as we see him return his hand to the king, but
mhm,
Viserys seems like he's fracturing from, you know, that blind fealty to his wife,
yeah,
which he's never really had. I guess he's not blind fealty, he's always been partial to his daughter, but, you
yeah.
know, giving her the benefit of the doubt, his wife. But certainly we can narrow that down to a big stock up week for Aemond.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think also stock up because he looks badass with that eye patch. I think he looks very cool with that. So that'll be interesting to see the now the adult actor, the older version of that character. As far as stock down, that's a little bit tougher, I think. Well, I would say
House Valarion, like,
Valerion, yeah, they're on the ropes, just in general, I would say.
we know that Corlys, or I don't know if it's like known, but expected that, you know, Corlys has been a major player so far. I anticipate he still will be. Him and Rhaenys, that's his wife, right?
Yes.
But interest, like them as a house, down two children within the span of a week, it seems like 2 weeks. They're gonna have to figure out where they align here. Are they gonna be loyal to their former daughter-in-law with Rhaenyra? Are they going to be upset at her remarrying so quickly? What are they going to do about
Right.
the grandchildren? They obviously were already fractured from Viserys and that side quite a bit. So I feel like they're just kind of in no man's land at this point, and we'll have to see where they unfold in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I agree. That is a very fragile house at the moment, emotionally and politically, because Corliss, they mentioned, I don't know if you saw the next week sneak peek or you know, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of preview, but they say Corliss is injured maybe in the stepstones or like fighting, and he maybe he's not in the best of health, I would say, at this point. And they of course, you know, have both of their children are gone, the direct inheritors of Driftmark, and you know, the daughters are without a mother, but they now have Rhaenyra as like a stepmom basically. And Daemon is kind of you know, maybe he'll be in a healthier place as a father hopefully going forward. So we'll see what happens with them. And also they have a dragon conundrum, perhaps, because not only did the one daughter not have a you know, a dragon, but that Vagar, you know, was to be inherited potentially, and they lost that. So we'll see
Mm-hmm.
what maybe they were able to cook up in that regard. But yeah, otherwise, you know, it's gonna be interesting. But yeah, not in a great spot there, even though they were playing hosts last episode. Seems like they just got run over. But yeah, I'm really excited to see these next. I can't believe we have 3 episodes left. That's crazy.
I
Um,
think I think my hold of the week here, not stock up, not stock down. It's to be determined. Laris Strong, I think,
ooh,
after coming out so hot in episode 6 with the plot to kill his brother and father at seemingly the wishes of the queen, but instead at the tail end of that episode being called out basically of like, this is not what I wanted. This is not what I meant.
yeah.
But you know, she secretly did. She's not upset that it happened, but like she kind of felt a little shock, a little guilt. Um, but you know, he's still trying to take his shot and offer up his services to the queen.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm good for now, but don't go too far. Stay nearby. I might need you soon. So I feel like he's still in a good spot. Like, I mean, not like good, but like for him and what he wants, he's in a good spot.
Yeah.
It seems like the queen still sees his value and his usefulness. But we'll have to see, as we know from Littlefinger's behavior, that you can seem on top of the world and that sometimes you will still get got working from the shadows. So So I feel like the jury's still out on Laris. I'm not a fan of him, but I think he might still be in a good spot, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on there with Laris. He is definitely a intriguing wild card, I think, and was very coming in very hot. Seemed to have a lot of power, and now it seemed like he is kind of in not limbo, but he is kind of just taking a break maybe and kind of repositioning himself. We'll see what happens after this next time jump. Maybe he'll be able to hop right back in with another violent and shocking move. But like I said, next 3 episodes, the last 3 episodes we'll have for probably a couple of years, unfortunately. But I'm really excited to see kind of how things are left off, and we'll certainly be talking more about it once we have more to say.
That we will. And I think that just about concludes this episode. Was an absolute blast talking about the news, House of the Dragon, Don't Worry Darling, Hocus Pocus 2. What an episode. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode and to every episode week in and week out. We appreciate your support and could not do it without you.
Absolutely. As Zach mentioned at the top of the show, keep up with us on social media. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. Give us a like on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube. You can keep up with all of our latest updates there, our latest articles, videos, giveaways, all that good stuff. And those can all be found at Inside Film Room.
And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to subscribe to the Rewind newsletter so you can get everything sent straight to your inbox. And until then, we will see you next time for another episode of Inside the Film Room.